Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I am the editorial director at Worn and Wound. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the podcast. Today I'm joined by Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn and Wound. Zach, how's it going?
Pretty good. Yeah. We've both been traveling a lot, so a little tired, and we have like 2 weeks of a lot to do before we travel again.
Yeah, we were talking just before we hit record that everything's been kind of a blur for the last couple of weeks with all the travel that I know we've both been doing, and yeah, we're at that point in the lead up to Watches and Wonders where if it doesn't have anything to do with Watches and Wonders, frankly, like I don't want to be bothered with it at this point. Like,
yeah,
there's so much prep involved in Watches and Wonders. I feel like that's kind of the main thrust of the next 2 weeks for not just us but everyone in the watch industry. It's just sort of has a large gravitational pull, as they say.
Yeah. And I feel like now that I just got back from one trip to Switzerland just a day ago, or 2 days ago now, whatever, like that was sort of like the last thing before, like now there's the 2 weeks. And now like I have to like look at our calendar again and be like, I don't even know if I have conflicting meetings and stuff on there. Like I have to like go through it and then
we probably all do. It would probably help all of us to kind of go through and look at that calendar just to do a quick double check. But I think we're pretty well prepared. This is always one of those things that feels like, I mean, it is like it's a logistical hurdle. There's a lot going on, and it always feels crazy. But I think that we pretty much always come through it pretty well.
Yeah,
things seem to Anyway, we're going to talk about some of our recent travel. We were both on press trips recently that introduced new watches, both Swatch Group brands, coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, who knows, introduced new watches that have been getting a lot of reaction in the watch community. One, I think, overwhelmingly positive, and the other a little bit more mixed, I think, to put it charitably. So we're going to talk about both of those watches, both of those releases today in some depth. But before we do that, we'll do a wrist check. Zach, what are you wearing today?
I have on a cool new watch. This is the Walbrook Jet Flyer. I was just finishing up my hands-on with this, so I'm still wearing it from having hands-on with it. It's a cool watch. It's a sub $1,000 automatic chronograph using a new movement called the Jambroun something or other. And it's a French assembled movement manufactured by Peacock. So they're trying to like make a new, there's not a lot of chronograph movements out there. And even Seagull is now really not available to people because they have a minimum order quantity of 10,000 pieces for the ST19. So there's definitely an opportunity for them to do something interesting with this movement. And this is the first watch to feature it. Walbrook is behind the other company as well, but it is open to other brands. So anyways, a really nice size little automatic chronograph.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts on that. It's always interesting when there's a new chronograph movement that kind of like enters the market, and this one seems to have an interesting and uncommon pedigree. So that'll be a cool one to read about soon on the website. I'm wearing my Atsuka Lowtech number 5 Kai today. Been thinking about Atsuka Lowtech a lot recently because of that new number 8 that dropped. That's a very exciting watch and an exciting brand. So I decided to put on the number 5 today. This watch I love this watch. Every time I put it on, I realize like how bad my eyesight has gotten, just because it's like the minute indexes are just kind of like impossibly small, and like I can't really read the running seconds is numbered, but it really just for me functions as like an indicator that the watch is running. Like it's very, this is like one of those watches that's like giving me an approximate time. Unless I like took out a loop or a magnifying glass, I don't think I could properly set it to the minute unless I got lucky, but that's okay. That's not really the point of this
time
watch,
to get the bifocals.
Yeah, seriously, I need to get my eyes checked. I'm putting that on the to-do list for after Watches and Wonders for sure. All right, so let's get into it. We're talking about new releases today from Longines and Omega. I went on a little press trip, not really a press trip, more of just like a preview event for most of the Longines novelties throughout the rest of the year. Right before Windup Dallas, they coincidentally had an event in Dallas, and I got to see a bunch of new Longines releases that I can't talk about, and the new Hydroconquest, which we will talk about. And you just got back from a press trip in Switzerland, as you mentioned, to see the new releases from Omega. They dropped a pretty important new watch last week that you had the privilege of seeing, being among the first to see. Why don't we start there? Because I think that's
Okay.
probably like a good jumping off point for like the rest of the conversation, which will be about like the reactions to these watches.
Hmm.
Tell us about the watches that you saw in Switzerland and kind of why they're important at a high level.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, the news is already out. It was the Constellation Observatory watch, and it was a launch that was kind of like a dual launch. So there was the watch itself, and then the watch was used as a way to sort of flex a new chronometer rating technology. And I'm saying that with some hesitation because the more I find out about it, the more I'm kind of like, I need some clarity,
Mm-hmm.
not just in general about really the newness of what they were doing, if it was really more the newness of the facility or newness of the technology. It's just confusing stuff as somebody who's not, like, none of us work at the COSC. Therefore, we're not very familiar with like in the depth of this technology. So you can present anything to us and it kind of feels novel. And now I'm kind of finding out just how novel it really is and what the difference is. But that all aside, so the high level cool part about this watch is that it's a return to the Constellation that everyone really likes, for like finally. So it's like the early
Mm-hmm.
1950s Constellation, which when that watch came out, it was a chronometer and it was, dedicated to their chronometer, trials. Hence, it had the observatory on the back. This really spoke to like Omega's like technical achievements at the time. And of course, it's this beautiful watch. Has all these like really like signature bold design elements, notably the 12-sided pie pan dial. Some versions had this sort of step on the outside of that. Then there's a lot of different versions of that watch, but there's like kite markers, which are just these very folded, sort of origami looking applied markers that are actually quite impressive when you look at under a loop, just like how complicated those things were. And a dog leg case, which is also frog leg case, I've heard. I don't know which is like the proper. I don't know how. I don't know where dogs' legs are kicking out like that.
I've never heard frog. I've always heard described as dog leg lugs, and
Dog leg
like
lugs, yeah.
any golfer will know, what the connotation of dog leg, which is a, just like a turn, like.
Okay. I just literally think about dogs. Like I think of like a little pug sitting on the ground. I'm like, okay, I guess its legs are funny. Like,
Yeah, it's a very distinctive design. Like I always
Yeah.
found that case design to be quite beautiful. It's exciting that it's like,
Yeah.
it's really like back in these watches. Like they really made a concerted effort to like make these watches, at least from a high level, like feel like the mid-century version,
Yeah.
which they hadn't done with this collection before.
No, they hadn't. And like they're sort of like got a little closer. So about it, like I think it was a decade ago when they launched the Globemaster,
Mm-hmm.
which was also when they marked the master chronometer like certification as like being now like something they were doing. So they followed that up with this next level, which isn't a new certification. It's just a new way of getting certified. And this was controversially marked by the fact that this watch lacks a second hand. It's an
Mhm.
hour and minute hand only watch, which the originals didn't have. Yeah, I know. Put your pitchforks away for a second. But the whole thing is that chronometers always have second hands, and they've always been rated based on the second hand. So the second hand itself actually used to measure the deviation over time. They use an auditory system that essentially tracks the functionality of the movement while it's going through all the chronometer testing. And that is, the technology itself is this box. So you talk a lot about a box. And the box itself is like a piece of tech. It holds 10 watch movements in it or heads in it. It's full of little microphones, contact mics. It's got processors in it. It has a high accuracy quartz movement in it for reference, which is like cleared every single time they open up the box and resynced with an atomic clock and like stuff like that. And the movements are in these boxes as they go through the tests. And then they gather all this data. So it's not just like at the end of each cycle, we are looking at, okay, did it deviate when it was in position 2 at, 33 centigrade or whatever. Instead, it's like thousands of points of data. And they boasted that they collected since the opening of the Institute, which we were the first people to go see, which is in French, but it translates to the Laboratory of Precision. And I'm not just going to butcher the French of that. We were the first people to go in and see this. It's basically a testing facility that they've collected 24 billion points of data on
24 billion.
24 billion.
That's a lot. That's a lot
with
of
the B.
billions.
Just in the several years they've been open, and nobody really, I think, outside the industry knew about this place because it's really was sort of like being built up or whatever. And the flex is that with the level of precision of this data, that they can certify as a chronometer as well as master chronometer these two hand movements. Okay, get your pitchforks back out now. And then the thing is that everyone's like, but how do you know if it doesn't have a seconds hand? Like, how can you even appreciate it?
So how can you?
I don't know.
So what is? I mean, I kind of see the point. Like I
get it.
I can argue that side. I think. I mean, we know that the certification refers to like stability of the rate, basically. Like you can set a watch incorrectly, and it will still kind of like advance at the proper time, like over the course of however long it'll do that, however long the power reserve is. So like it's not that like the seconds hand helps the user understand the stability, but it doesn't actually like, I don't know, like you don't need it for it to be stable. But I can understand like from the user experience side, why you want
I mean,
seconds hand.
It's purely like, which side of the marketing do you want to buy into? Do you want to buy into the fact that you can hack your watch and then count the amount of seconds it's off at the end of the day or the end of the week or something? Or do you want the peace of mind to know that your movement has gone through testing and is thus rated as it?
Right.
And to me, like that's what you get to me. Like, and Omega makes every other watch in their collection basically with a second hand. So like you have your, they're not like taking this away from you entirely. I think it was an attempt at a flex that backfired. The watch you'd say was maybe thinner because it didn't have a second hand, but it's actually quite a thick watch. So
yeah,
there's some
let's talk about your impressions of the watch itself. So this watch is a little under 40 millimeters. It's 39.4 millimeters in diameter. The case height is listed at 12.23 millimeters. It has a lug to lug of 47.2 millimeters. So this is I think like a medium-sized watch by like modern standards, I think it's fair to say. But that's a departure from like the original versions of these watches from the 1950s, which were like they were like 35, 36 millimeters, for the most part. Like they were like, normal sized dress watches for that period. So how do these wear in your estimation at a little under 40?
So like the initial impression, watch on table, right? Like don't know how big it is. They are absolutely beautiful. I think they're some of the nicest looking Omegas I've seen in some time, particularly on their dress watch side of things, right? Because I don't know, they don't really, these feel more elaborate and more kind of like decorative in a cool way. Like they lean into the luxury like look a little bit more than like the kind of Globemasters and Seamasters, which are sort of very palatable watches, right? They're sort of very like easy to wear any day watches. These feel more like dress watches in a cool way. They're too big. It's just like, and I think that was sort of the sentiment for everyone who, I didn't talk to anyone with very large wrists. Maybe they had a different opinion, but like it just didn't fit how you kind of wanted it to fit. And I do think there was this opportunity, given the fact that Omega's catalog includes an awful lot of 39, 40 millimeter watches in similar, like, the other constellations, whatever, to make a 36 or 37 millimeter watch. There could be movement reasons for why they didn't or something. It's very hard to try and get your head into, the logic of all this stuff. But it was really actually the lug to lug, because of the shape of those lugs, that made it feel too big. Because the lugs are like angular, they kick out and then over. So it doesn't really sit on the top of your wrist and like kind of hold your wrist the way like a traditional like lug shape would. So yeah, it just felt too big to me. And because of that, ultimately lost some of its elegance and I think some of its charm. But yeah, so it's tricky. I think it's like on one hand they were beautiful, on the other hand they just didn't fit right. And I'm not, well, I guess I'll get to some other aspects of this launch in a moment. But yeah, that seemed to be kind of agreed on. And the thing that was really funny about the thickness, and I pointed this out in the reel I made, is that it had boxed sapphires on the top and the bottom of the case.
Right. I was going to ask you about this specifically. Yeah. So they do that. They want to show off the movement. There's this like observatory medallion that's on the rotor, which is obviously like, a point of pride and like historic part of this line's like lineage, having that observatory medallion. But it seems to me that like they could have done a closed case back with a nice, like enameled, medallion or something, and, kept the movement hidden and made this watch like probably quite a bit thinner. Like maybe it could have been like 10 millimeters instead of like 12.2 millimeters thin. And that would have had I think that would probably have like a pretty big difference on the wearing
Yeah, I think it
experience
would
and
have
the
gone a
impression.
long
Yeah.
way because the fact that it stands off your wrist is just making those lugs kind of like even less ergonomic because now they're just
Right.
floating higher up. Yeah, I mean they might have made a point about the medallion being on the rotor as like something that was like I don't know, they're proud of or something. It didn't really strike me as that interesting.
Yeah.
It's a nice looking medallion. It's got, laser bladed, whatever. The platinum version has like a decorated version that's like enameled. And the
Yeah.
case is actually, that one's thicker because of that. Because
Interesting.
I guess the rotor is sort of kind of cupped within the sapphire
Hmm.
a little bit, potentially. It's hard to say. And because I kind of in hindsight, I didn't look at it at that exact angle to kind of determine these things at the time, But yeah, I mean, it would have, if it had been 10 millimeters thick and 37 millimeters, I think the conversation around this watch would have been so different. But instead, the reaction has been
A little
quite
toxic.
negative
Yeah.
and toxic, and not just directed at the watch, but directed at us media. And I
Yeah.
have to say, it's been a while since I've been on a trip like this and had a post that just got that kind of immediate negative reaction that was like, I don't like this watch, therefore you are paid for and you're a shill and you're lying to us. That was the tone of a lot of comments. And not just to me. We were all like, this is the other media. We're all talking about it. We're like, what happened? When did
Yeah.
this become like a controversial watch? Yes, it's expensive. It's Omega. Did you
Yeah.
think it was going to be affordable? Don't buy it. I don't know. It's to me, there's not much of a conversation to be had there. Everything at Omega is moving up in price.
Yeah.
These are all made out of fancy materials. Their gold watch is $60,000. Boo-hoo, don't buy it. I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore. You can't be disappointed by a massive Swiss luxury watch brand that's known for being expensive if they're expensive. Guess
It's
what?
almost
The next Patek that comes out is going to be expensive too.
Yeah. I mean, with Omega in particular, the cost of these things has kind of become like a meme within the watch community. Like every watch that they release is kind of, by some corner of the internet, if not the entire internet, deemed too expensive because they've made this conscious effort to increase their prices, I think, to sort of compete with Rolex. The watch industry has this weird thing where a more expensive watch is desirable. It's like a badge of honor, if you can say yes, this watch is, having a discount on a watch is not it's not cool, in the luxury watch space to have a watch that's affordable. You want the watch to be a rare, expensive thing. So you're not a shill. Just we'll put that out there. You
Thank
weren't,
you.
you weren't, you weren't paid to say anything nice about Omega. We never are as a, as a company. These press trips that we go on, we're not told to write anything in particular or have any sort of reaction to a watch. And if we are, we simply don't. That's not part of how we cover watches, editorially. And just to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, brands don't do that. Legitimate brands do not invite people like us on press trips and say but you have to say this about a watch, because they know that is, it just it completely kills the integrity of whatever content we decide to make after the fact. So that just, people can believe, that does or doesn't happen, but it's just a fact, that, the legitimate brands do not ask for that.
No. And there's, I mean, there's still yes, they paid for the trip. They didn't say, hey, Zach, we're doing something in Geneva. Will you pay for your way to come out here? I was invited on a trip. They flew us there. They put me up in a hotel. They fed me while I was there. It was all very nice. This is par for the course in our industry and many other industries. And frankly, from what I understand of trips that you and I have never gone on, this was, on the less luxurious side for some of these, massive brands. They'll take people on week-long trips and adventures and all sorts of things. It was a normal trip for a launch that they wanted to do in Switzerland because it also involved around being at their headquarters and things like that. It's not like a thank you to then make the content about the watch. You know what I mean? It's it's very strange. If I had been staying at a motel down the road, my reaction wouldn't have been different. it's very, I don't know. It's very weird. Like, it's like, I get it. You don't like the watch. Therefore, if anyone is saying anything that's not negative and not flaming, furthering the flames of anger against this watch, like, then you are obviously working for the PR department of the company and all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's very demoralizing, honestly, as like a content maker. Because like, trust me, I don't, and I know you're the same way. I don't put myself in a reel because I enjoy being on camera and having people look at me. You know what I
Right.
mean? I hate it. It's like, so I did that because I had the experience of seeing these watches, seeing them hands on, which to me is the value of talking to me right now that I was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all seen the photos. I got to hold the watch. I got to try it on. I got to wear the gold brick bracelet for a couple minutes. You know what I mean? Like, there's value in that. Do you really need me to pile on and talk about oh my God, it doesn't have a second hand. It doesn't have like, and the price is more than I want to pay. I don't know. It's very frustrating, and
Yeah.
cowing to what the hordes want me to say is just as lacking in integrity as being paid by a brand too. It's like,
Yeah.
we don't make content just to get like, my content was genuine to what I think,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also think it's fair to like, for, to expect the content that we make to be true to what we think for that time. And I think that sometimes when we first encounter a
Mm-hmm.
watch, like we're in a bit of a bubble, I think. And
Yeah.
like you said that you did eventually like get wind of some of the like reactions to this watch, like after the fact, and I'm curious like what that experience was like in Switzerland. But like, sometimes like you're not, we're enthusiasts. We want to like these watches. And so at least for me, like I'm not always thinking about like the 5-year view or the 10-year view of how these watches are going to be perceived in the culture. Like in that first moment that I'm like evaluating a watch, I'm just sort of like trying to enjoy the watch
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
like and like you, I'm not thinking about price in any sort of like critical way either, because we don't really write like buyer's guides. We don't have like
Yeah. Yeah.
a buyer's guide mentality for these things. Like we don't necessarily think that like our content on these Omega constellations is going to be like an informative tool for someone who wants to buy the watch
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. Like if you want to buy the watch, you're going to find a way to buy the watch or make a decision on how to buy the watch, regardless of what you read on our website or Hodinkee or Fratello or any other blog or see on any YouTube channel or whatever. It's really just like about our like providing our like opinions on the watch itself and more general information. The thing that like always irks me is this like expectation that there's a responsibility to provide a justification for purchasing something, when it's like there's so many ways to enjoy the watch hobby without purchasing
Mm-hmm.
watches. It kind of goes against like our like a fundamental outlook on how we view this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not about ownership necessarily.
And furthermore, I mean, like, I very much agree with the sort of, it's like a fog of war or something when you're there, except for the wrong term. But it's like, it's exciting. It's exciting to be at a launch. I like watches an awful lot. You'll see that it's the same thing as Watches and Wonders. You're getting put watches in front of you that are completely absurd, but it's fun. It's exciting. And therefore the excitement comes through. I don't go in there being like, how am I going to put the screws to this brand? Like, how am I going to be, which I feel like is kind of a growing sort of side of the commentary, particularly on Instagram. It's a little bit like, that's what quote unquote real journalism is. It's like finding the way to undermine brands and whatever. Whereas like, we're an enthusiast website about like the love of watches and getting joy out of it. And like,
Yeah.
if you're just going to go in and be pissed off, and then I don't know, like, you're, to me, missing the point of all this. It's a freaking watch. Like, don't look at it if you don't like it. Don't buy it if it's too expensive. Like, it's just, I'm not buying this watch, because it was the wrong size. If they came out with one down the line that's the right size and I am in a position to pay whatever it is at that point, a different conversation. But like, right now, it's just a thing that exists and I got to see it,
Yeah. I also, it's something else that always strikes me is like people say it's like it's too expensive. People won't buy this. What a disaster, whatever.
People are going to buy it.
Omega's a huge company. Like they have data, I assume, that tells them that they can sell X number of these watches at a particular price point. Brands do sometimes make mistakes about pricing. it's possible that that's what's happened here, but I have a feeling like they'll sell these watches to people who are like genuinely interested in them and have, 10K to burn on the steel ones, or 60K to burn on the gold ones. Like, those people are out there. They're not people who are like, making comments on Instagram, though,
Yeah.
who haven't
No,
seen the
exactly.
watch in the first week that it's been released.
Yeah, the enthusiasts are not the only market, and the brands, certainly on the size of Omega, don't need to satisfy us with every release. It's
Yeah.
sad, but it's true.
Yeah.
And honestly, that yellow gold one with the green gator strap, like you say, like, you're not buying that if you like only have $32,000 or whatever it is in your bank account. You're buying that because you have a hell of a lot more than that, and those $32,000 don't really matter to you anymore.
Right.
Honestly, that was an amazing one. Like, that one I probably would buy of all of them if I could, because it was gorgeous. Like everything I said about the sizing out the window. That was just a ridiculously pretty watch. Like, the yellow gold on yellow gold was great. And I mean, the things like the open case back, that speaks to who's actually buying it. People want to see the movement. At a store, it's like, it's
no,
part of
that would be an enthusiast design decision to, like, close the case back. Omega knows that. Like, they have enthusiast focused watches. They have like limited edition versions of the Speedmaster that are like directly aimed at the enthusiast crowd. This is not that. They want this to be a mass market watch for a more casual but well-heeled customer, it seems like. And like, I think that's, why we saw last week there's like
7-ish.
7. Yeah. So like, that's another sign that like what we're dealing with is, like a big mass market play, like this is not like a super focused kind of like nerdy thing. It's, this is meant to like be a watch that like quote unquote normal, although that means like normal, like rich people, I think in this context, but like it's a watch for that customer, I think, for sure.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, yeah, don't they make like a dive watch that's like light and weighs and is like $50,000 because it's like light? Like, I mean,
Yeah, with I think a titanium movement or something. I mean, so that's another point. It's like Omega does like, they make every kind of watch you can imagine. Like they make like that dive watch is like an experimental thing that's crazy expensive, and like that's sort of like a weird like. That's where the Venn diagram of like enthusiast watch and like rich guy watch sort of like overlap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they make like, like generic sports watches and generic dress watches and like specialty sports watches and like specialty dress watches. And there's like all sorts of different things that they make because they're a huge brand and they have like they're
a huge brand.
Yeah. They're enormous. So you mentioned you like the gold on gold, the steel. Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite of the steel versions that you saw?
Probably like the cream dial with the rose gold accents, just because that, they made that to look kind of the most like some of the vintage pieces. And we actually got to see some vintage pieces as well. They took some out from like the archives to play with, which was just nice to see. But yeah, that one was very nice. The blue felt a little too modern. The green was hard to see in the lighting we were in. Mm-hmm. It was strange. It was like sometimes you couldn't quite make out that it was green. The gloss black was striking, but it didn't have the guilloche lines around the edge, which to me is like so important for that.
That one's the
watch
ceramic dial, right? The black
ceramic
one.
Dial, yeah. So the one was ceramic dial, which I guess kind of gave it a sportier look. But yeah, I mean, all of the all gold ones were absolutely stunning. The white gold on white gold, like the finishing on the gold dial was really lovely. It had like a sparkle to it. All red. I mean, I guess I'm just a sucker for that tone on tone thing, but it looks really good when everything's gold, because the dial on those are solid gold as well. So it's like, it's a hefty chunk of gold, and quite pretty.
Yeah. I just want to return to the chronometry bit, like the certification thing. Do you think that this method of certification has any like? Does it have legs? Like, do you think we'll continue to see this, or do you think this will be sort of just like a one-off for this watch, and maybe we see like a version of this watch in like a year or two with a second standard? We kind of forget about this new certification process.
Well, this is the tricky part. So, from what I can tell, it's not new at all. So, all the like witchy like time graphers and things like that, they use a
Hmm.
contact mic as well. It's pretty standard to measure the health of the movement via the vibrations it's giving off. It's like kind of how it's been done for a while.
Hmm.
And once again, it can't like go into COSC next door or some of these other companies and see how they're doing things. But from my understanding, this is not actually that different. But I think what is new to it, so they call it dual metric technology. I think sort of what's different, it might be the way they're literally implementing it. The box they made is a patented box. So there's some like novel tech there. Um, I think it's that you could do both chronometer and master chronometer testing with the same thing, which
Hmm.
are different things, right? So there's first it goes through chronometer certification, gets certified, and then has to go through master chronometer certification. And mind you, like it's all very tricky because it's like this is being shown to you via Omega, and if Omega is a part of it, but this is all impartial too. So it's actually being run by third party companies that are, you know, by like law have to be impartial to the company that, you know, is clearly funding it,
Hmm.
you know, and it's all like clearly also part of ETA and Swatch Group. But in theory, it's open to other brands and stuff. Um, so yeah, but so the thing is with the auditory element of it, it's like I think that there are other people who are taking a lot of the data throughout as well. It's just that the like I think the chronometer test is sort of done at these exact moments. So you put it through one of the however long it is, turning it at angle, one or position 1 or 2, and then you kind of compare the photographs. I think that's sort of how the testing is done along the lines. This basically doesn't do that part from what
Hmm.
we could tell. It was all a little cryptic too. It's sort of, this is the part I'm like, the more I kind of step back from, the more I'm sort of confused by. But the dual thing, I think, has to do with master chronometer because right now only them and Tudor are doing master chronometer certification, at least on scale. And it's a huge part of Omega's business.
Yeah.
I mean, all their movements are master chronometer. So maybe there's efficiency there. I don't know. It's a little tricky.
Yeah.
A little tricky.
Well, I guess like time will tell if we continue to see movements that are or watches that have this this
The
master
two
chronometer
hand
certification that
chronometer.
are
Yeah.
they're two hand. I mean we were talking Slack, and you mentioned that you like two hand watches.
I like two
I
hand
also
watches.
like it like a two hand
Yeah.
watch. So like, I think it's cool that like if you can I think it's a nice idea that you can like get a two hand watch with master chronometer certification. Like that's a cool thing if you're into
Yeah.
like chronometry and you like two hand watches, because like there have definitely been three hand watches with a running seconds hand that have kind of like been a little ruined, I think, by having that running seconds hand. Like they just like sometimes don't
Hmm.
belong, and I feel like maybe they're there purely for that that certification process, or at least in part.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I just think it's funny that there's this kind of like unanimous, or not unanimous against everyone, but like that everyone's sort of, the naysayers are saying the same thing, which is just like, without the second hand, what's the point?
Hmm.
The point is that the watch is accurate.
Yeah.
The point is that the watch has been tested individually and certified as accurate in these levels of testing. It's 25 days of testing between the two things. Like that's part of what you're buying into with Omega. So like you kind of trust it. Like I don't know. It's, if it didn't say master chronometer on the dial, like if it didn't say that and they didn't tell you it was, but it's still master chronometer certified, would you care that there's no second hand, or is it just because it says master chronometers? It's like,
Yeah.
what do you really care about here?
I think people just
And
can't
so I have
wrap
a
their heads around, because they've been told for forever, that we've all been told forever that like you need a seconds hand to get something chronometer certified, and now we're being
yeah.
told something else, and like people are having an emotional reaction to like
Yes.
to news that they
To
didn't.
change
Yeah.
my precious chronometers in their hands. But yeah, like I have the Ming 3707, right, which is like a two-hand watch.
Yep.
And I love that it's two-handed. It really works well with that watch.
Hmm.
I would like that watch to be a chronometer too. It would just make it to me like, therefore I know it's like that it's been, certified as another level of quality above that. Secondhand be damned. I don't need to
Yeah.
watch it. One thing I would say would be cool, here's the nerd comment, right? Glass Shoot original, they have a Senator watch, and maybe a couple watches that have detent minute hands.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pull the crown out, hack the seconds, the minute hand will actually line up with the mark exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if they had that kind of function, at least there would have been like a zeroing effect.
Yeah.
Right. Which could have been neat. It's also just an extremely cool like complication that I feel like brands could use.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick before we move on to Longines, I do want to ask. So you mentioned, what was it like, kind of like on the ground in Switzerland as the reaction was starting to come in? Like once you realized that like there was a, like a segment of Instagram, a segment of the internet that was kind of like out for these watches. Like how does that sort of like change your experience on the ground on one of these press trips? Because I've been involved in that too. Like I've been on press trips, and I think we've all experienced it to some extent at Watches and Wonders, where like we have one impression of a watch, and then like we kind of get wind that like back home, like this isn't like working out the way that they plan. So what was it like? What was it like for you on this trip to experience that?
I mean, it was sort of like that. Like it was a delayed thing. Certainly, it was like later in the day, because it's hard to make content on these things. So you like see everything. You're busy. You're being bussed around different places, and then you like get to your hotel for an hour and try and get as much done as you possibly can, and then post it, and then you kind of find out after that, right? So it's like there's a bit of a time delay on it, but it was sort of like, wow, were people not happy about this on your media as well? I'm like, kind of like, yeah, it seems like this is more controversial than you expected it to be, and everyone's just kind of like, like, wow, just didn't expect it. There's always a conversation, but it was like kind of like there was an aggressiveness to how people were upset about it. Like it was a personal slight of some kind.
Yeah. Well, like we said, I think people are kind of like primed for this with Omega now, like in particular, like they're just sort of they've become a little bit of a punching bag, I think, for like the inflated pricing and doing some things that are maybe not super enthusiast focused, which again, it's like to be expected. They're not an enthusiast brand, like really, like they're a mass market brand. So, but yeah, no, we'll all experience that. I'm sure at some point at Watches and Wonders in a few weeks, there will be watches there that we like are really impressed with, like in the room, that just like go over like a lead balloon at, more broadly. So.
And there's this, I might not get the saying exactly right, but it's actually something that Blake Mallon, business partner and CEO of Warner Wound, says, and it was something somebody told him, but it's like, you could sum up like the reaction of commenters with, you should have asked me first.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing. It's like, I should have just consulted with you guys first about what my reaction should have been here. It's like, it very much had that kind of feeling of like, wrong, we don't like this. So
yeah. If only brands could consult individually with every anonymous Instagram shit poster, like that would be, they would never make a watch that doesn't go over well ever again. I have a prediction. I think that like these watches will make their way into boutiques and, onto people's wrists, and more people will see them. And just like every watch that's released that people have a, an immediate negative reaction to that they don't actually get to see. Once they start putting them on, they'll be like, oh, this is fine. This is actually not
just
worthy of all the controversy.
It's everyone's favorite watch now.
Yeah.
We all are just aching for Cubitus.
Yes. That's the title of my memoir, Aching for Cubitus, I think. So, yeah.
But yeah, no, I that's very true. And yeah, you'll hang out with one for a little bit and be like, oh, maybe it's not so bad after all.
What was I so angry about?
Yeah. And like I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist. If you have like a 7.5 or 8 inch wrist, which plenty of people do, the watch might fit you fine.
Yeah.
Too. So like,
I still think like in principle, this watch should have been like 37 millimeters. Like they should have it would have
been an easy win. It would have been such an easy win.
It would have been an easy win for the enthusiast for sure. Like that's what I think all of us, probably everyone listening to this podcast probably wants to see. But Omega knows, Omega's smart. They know that they wouldn't sell as many if they made, this very important collection in a smaller size. But maybe we get that later. Like maybe this watch, performs really well, and they decide, oh, let's hit start on those machines for the 37 millimeter case on this, or the 36 millimeter case, which would be even cooler.
I'm also betting there'll be like a sub-second version eventually or something.
I'm sure.
I feel like they used a sub-second on the Ranger last year.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think that there's
not the Ranger. They don't make a Railmaster.
The Rail, yeah, right. Yeah, there'll be variations on this.
Yeah.
ad nauseum for years, assuming it doesn't actually fail, which I don't think it will because Omega's smart. So, all right, let's shift gears real quick.
Mhm.
The other big release last week, which I think is interesting
Same
to talk
day.
about. Yeah, same day. I think it's interesting to
Yeah.
discuss because it had a very different reaction.
Hmm.
Like kind of like on the other end of the spectrum was the new Longines Hydroconquest. So I got a chance to see these watches in Dallas right before Windup, as I mentioned. This is a big kind of this is like Longines' big spring launch. Like they kind of like have staked a lot on the release of this watch. It's a big tentpole release for them. I will say that like they have some cool stuff coming later in the year that I can't quite talk about yet, but this is by far like the most mass market thing that they have, like in the works. The stuff coming later is maybe more like enthusiast, oriented, but this is like meant to be like a big kind of like tentpole release. I was a little bit skeptical, kind of going into seeing this. I knew what I was going to see, obviously, because I got the press materials beforehand. I've never been a big fan of the Hydro Conquest. I always just thought it was like a little bit clunky. They've been, I think the previous Hydro Conquest was like a 43 millimeter case. I never really liked the dial execution. They had like big numerals at
Hmm.
6, 9, and 12. With a date window that just looked like really small, in comparison. I just always thought it was sort of like just a weird watch that like was not appealing to me. It was kind of like a good example to me of like why I like the Longines vintage inspired stuff and was
Hmm.
left cold by the modern, more contemporary stuff. But this is arguably their most important like contemporary line. Like it's not really, it's not inspired by any vintage Longines reference. It has sort of like classic dive watch
Hmm.
aesthetics, but it's not, I would not say like it's vintage inspired, quote unquote. I really like this watch quite a bit. There are two case sizes. There's a 42 millimeter version and a 39 millimeter version. The 39 is like really perfectly proportioned. Like it wears great. Um, it's it comes on, all of these watches come on new Milanese mesh bracelets, which is not something I'm normally like too drawn to, but like they taper really well. They have micro adjust in the clasp, which is kind of like a cheat for Milanese style bracelets. They wear really, really nicely. And the one that they're really kind of centering in the campaign is this, they call it luminous blue, the bezel color. And it's kind of an unfortunate naming convention because it's not luminous the way that watch people think
Hmm.
of lume. It's just like a very bright blue, which is different from like the traditional Longines blue, which is also represented here. They got a bunch of SKUs here. It's actually kind of confusing. They've got like several different versions of these watches, but the luminous blue, which is the watch that you see in the header image on the article on our website, is very, very nice.
It's a bright
Um,
blue.
yeah, it's very bright. And like this is a really good watch, and the retail pricing for these watches is around $2,300, I think, on the mesh bracelet, um, which is like very like appealing, honestly. And
Hmm.
I came away from this meeting thinking like I've never really been tempted to purchase a contemporary, like a contemporary collection Longines. Like I've been tempted to purchase many times like vintage inspired Longines because they do such a
Yep.
nice job of rating the archives, and there've been a bunch over the last like 5 or 6 years, longer even,
Hmm.
that I've thought were really very cool and that I'd consider owning. And this is the first time I can remember thinking like I would like own like this like modern diver that they've made, because I think it really is sort of like a shot across the bow of like Tudor and Omega and other brands that kind of make divers in like that like $3,000 to $6,000 range. It's hard to find like fit and finish stuff with these watches that like makes it feel cheaper, at 2,300. I was just like very impressed um with just kind of like the overall quality of these things. It has a good movement and has like I think it's like 70 or 80 hour um, um, movement in it. So yeah, really good, and lots of different options. Like there's a new
Hmm.
green dial with a green bezel. That's really nice. You can get it on an H-link bracelet if you prefer that over the Milanese bracelet. So yeah, really solid release and almost universally praised on social media. So I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting contrast to the
Yeah.
Omega release. And I like thinking it through. Like I think it just really comes down to like that sort of like buyer's guide mentality and like accessibility in just like a very real sense. Like people can envision buying this watch because it's lower
Hmm.
priced. It'll be easier to access. They can't envision buying like the Constellation because of not just the price, but I think like other concerns, like things that Omega maybe didn't nail for the enthusiast crowd. And Longines like did nail some of those things that were important to kind of get right for enthusiasts with this watch. And so like you're seeing like I'm being served content across every social media app, like positive critiques of the
Hmm.
Hydroconquest and negative information about the new constellation. It's really fascinating to see like how these things exist, together on social media right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you, I mean, the Hydro Conquest is just like not a line I've ever paid much attention to, and I have the exact same sort of image in my head that you described of like the large numerals,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just being kind of like almost like a '90s holdover sort
Yeah.
of diver. These are fine. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, here's my bias coming in. These are completely and utterly boring to me, and I
Well,
actually have absolutely no interest in them. But they seem really likable
yeah.
in their complete lack of having much, like being like they are so middle of the road.
Yes.
They got
And I
rid of
think that
everything controversial, and that boom, it's like,
I think that's intentional on the part of
yeah, yeah,
Longines. And I mentioned that like in the like, little hands-on that I wrote, like this is like, I think I said like, this is not a watch that will get a lot of attention at the watch collectors meetup because it's like, it's pretty generic, but I think
it's
that
like a
that's like
good functional Swiss luxury watch, right? It's
yeah,
like
it's
you,
just like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like, it's there, this is like maybe like too like a bit of a cliche, but it's like it's their Black Bay. It's their like kind of like
hmm,
generic sort of like palate cleansing dive watch. And I can imagine there's a place for this in the collection of, like enthusiasts who maybe have like more like oddball tastes, like people like, like me and you who like, are interested in like the weird indies, the Atsuka Low-Techs and things, but who
hmm,
still want, like sort of like just a classic generic, you know,
yeah,
diver to wear, some of the time. And that's why I like have hung on to my Black Bay for, as long as I have, even though like the stuff I really love is, like the James Lamb and the
hmm,
Atsuka Low-Tech and like the weird kind of like niche stuff. I think there is a place for this with a certain type of enthusiast. And of course, it casts a huge net. Like this, they'll sell, they'll sell a lot of these,
they'll
in
sell a lot of
malls
these,
and
yeah.
in, on cruises and like everywhere else that you buy like a
A
Longines.
great bar
So
mitzvah watch.
yeah,
Great bar
100%.
mitzvah watch.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's high praise.
Yeah.
That is definitely a great bar mitzvah watch. Yeah.
It's interesting actually with the pricing that they're like kind of being aggressive and seemingly not moving any further up market. Like once again, I don't know like Longines pricing off the top of my head, but this very much seems on the middle. Like I don't know a
Yep.
legend diver, but to me a legend diver was always more than this. Even several years ago,
Mm-hmm.
it was maybe a $3,000 or like a $4,000 watch, and I might be wrong. Like I don't look at their prices very often. But in terms of like the brand positioning within the Swatch Group catalog, like Longines is below Omega, just
Yep.
below Omega. It's like the brand and it's still very much a prestige brand, for them, especially given their heritage. And like from there, you have the Hamiltons, the Tissot's, Certinum, all those brands. Maybe Rado, sort of a little bit above Rado. Anyway,
Rado, I think.
so the fact that this Longines is like almost priced like a rat or like a nicer Mito or something is kind of a statement that they're like Omega's moving up. Longines is going to be the luxury everyman brand to some
Yep.
respect. And I mean, if you look at the rest of their stuff, like every time I reminded of Longines, it's a terrible thing, but like I don't know, we move on. I remember that they came out with a 36 or 37 millimeter Ultrachron dress watch last year
Mm-hmm.
that is like super cool, and I
Yeah,
need
it's
to
really nice.
get my hands on one again because I like saw it for like 5 minutes in a hotel, and like that balanced with this is a cool dynamic and a
Yeah.
company.
Yep. Yeah. To your point about pricing, I mean they're very aware of that, and something that they mentioned in their presentation to us like several times is that like they are kind of like staking their claim as like an accessible luxury brand, whatever that means. I think there's kind of like that would be an interesting term to interrogate, like accessible luxury or affordable luxury. But like it's
Our language fails us.
Yeah.
That's, I think, often. Yes.
For sure. But like they're conscious of that, and like that's something that that's a lane that they're proud to be in. Like they feel like they offer, a lot of genuine value, with a watch like this. And I will say that like some of the watches that they have coming later this year are more expensive, but they still offer like a pretty like compelling value. So yeah, I think that's
Cool.
sort of like Longines is in an interesting place in terms of like pricing strategy compared to some of the other Swatch Group brands and brands outside of the Swatch Group, for sure. Yeah. Longines Hydroconquest. I like this watch. I think that if you're looking for a, that sort of like, I hate to use the word generic because it sounds like a pejorative, but I really don't mean it that way. Like it's just a really nicely executed kind of like basic, modern dive watch. I think that like, under $3,000, I don't know that you could like really do much better, than this. So
it's definitely
yeah.
one that like that could be fun to put it up to the test. Like kind of just take a larger survey at the moment and just kind of see, because I mean you very well could be right. In terms of like micro brand sort of scene, that this is maybe the most compelling. And for the sub person out there, I mean, I'm looking at our site and we have a Hulk, a basic sub, and a Smurf side by side. Isn't that?
Yeah.
So like, they don't even make all those, and you wouldn't be able to get one anyway. But like, if you just want the look and you don't really care about the, the name Rolex on everything, like this has got that for sure.
And that has been, I think, like the one negative sort of like critique on these watches is like I have seen some people be like, well, they're copying Rolex, they're copying Tudor, whatever. Listen, like dive watches all kind of look alike, at a certain point.
Like
like
the bezel's very Seamaster.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to make like a, like a mass market dive watch, which is obviously what Longines is in the business of, with this watch, it's going to look like some other watches. There's going to be some common ground there, if you choose certain colors, certain shapes for markers on the dial. Like it's unavoidable. And I think, similar to like the pricing conversation, I think that's kind of a lazy critique. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of watches that kind of look alike, like that's just sort of how it's always been, to a large extent.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
for sure.
Zach, any final words on either the Hydroconquest or your Omega experience before we wrap things up for today?
Final words, final thoughts. It's been an interesting week. I don't know. No, I mean, yeah, it's just interesting. It's also interesting, like Swatch obviously is not part of Watches and Wonders, so there was like a little while for a couple of years where it was kind of like, when is their release cycle? What are they doing? And now it feels like they're honing in on the time before Watches and Wonders to do some big launches. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know, guys, whoever's out there.
People are out there, I think.
People are out there. Omega Constellation, give it a chance or don't. Hydroconquest, cool. Good for you. I don't know.
I think that's probably a good place to...
Hydroconquest, good for you.
Yeah, Hydroconquest, good for you. Congratulations on your bar mitzvah. Yeah. I think that's a good place to leave it. We will be back next week with another new episode of the podcast. Watches and Wonders right around the corner. So we'll be recording from there in a couple of weeks, or attempting to, as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, keep it tuned to the Worn and Wound feed for more podcasts. We'll link to everything we talked about in the show notes today. And until next week, take care.